Redwood Asylum in Northern California, abandoned for over 30 years. A place locals won't go near, especially after dark. They whisper about a nun with no face who walks its decaying halls, a silent shadow drifting through the darkness. In 2022, a documentary filmmaker named Emily Carter decided to challenge the legend. With a small crew, she entered the asylum to prove the silent nun was nothing more than a ghost story. But what they found was far worse than any myth. The team arrived at Redwood Asylum just as the sun began to set. The towering iron gates groaned open, almost as if they were being welcomed. The air inside was thick with the smell of dust, damp mold, and something else. Something rotten. Paint peeled from the walls like strips of dead skin. Emily noticed old religious paintings lining the corridors, but something was terribly wrong. On every canvas, the faces of the nuns had been violently scratched out, erased, all except for one. A single painting remained untouched. A nun, standing alone, her hands crossed in prayer, her head bowed, with no face visible in the shadows. As night fell, a deep chill settled over the asylum. The crew's audio equipment, meant to capture any strange sounds, suddenly started picking up faint whispers. At first, they dismissed it as the wind whistling through broken windows. But then the whispers formed words, a soft, chilling phrase repeating over and over, "Stay quiet." Emily's blood ran cold. "No one talk," she mouthed to her crew. Just then, a soft tapping echoed from down the hall. It sounded like footsteps. Slow, deliberate, and getting closer. They spun around, flashlights cutting through the darkness, but the hallway was empty. There was nothing there, except for a long shadow stretching across the floor, a shadow in the unmistakable shape of a nun. The shadow led them to a heavy door at the end of the hallway entrance to the basement. It was wrapped in thick chains and secured with multiple padlocks, but as Emily reached out to touch it, every single chain snapped open on its own. The heavy door swung inward, revealing a dark, descending staircase. Down in the basement, they found piles of old patient records. Most were burned or rotted away, but one file remained strangely preserved. The name on the folder read, Sister Mary Beaumont, head nurse, 1956 to 1963. The reason for her dismissal was listed as extrema silence therapy. Emily's hands trembled as she read on. Sister Mary believed that absolute silence was the only cure for madness. Her method. She sewed her patient's lips shut. When the church discovered her horrific crimes, she was locked away in an isolation cell. But before they could remove her, she stitched her own mouth closed and prayed for eternal silence. The next day, she was found dead, kneeling before a mirror with no face left. Just as Emily finished reading the last sentence, every light in the asylum went out, plunging them into total blackness. Heavy, dragging footsteps echoed from the floor above them. Then, a whisper, so close it seemed to vibrate in the air right beside their ears. Quiet. A figure materialized at the top of the basement stairs. It wore a nun's habit, its long black veil obscuring where a face should be. But there was no face, just a smooth, empty expanse of skin like melted wax. It glided down the stairs without moving its feet. The crew panicked, turning to run, but the basement door slammed shut behind them. The nun raised a hand, and an unnatural silence fell over the room. Their voices were smothered, their breath caught in their lungs. Their screams died before they could even leave their throats. Emily, thinking fast, pointed her camera at the entity. Through the lens, the nun suddenly had a horrifying visage with a mouth stitched crudely shut and sunken, bleeding eyes. It leaned forward and whispered, "Join." The silence. The next morning, police arrived to find the asylum eerily quiet. The crew's van was parked outside, undisturbed. All of their equipment was left behind, untouched. In the basement, they found only one thing: Emily's camera lying on the cold, damp floor. The final recording showed a frantic scene of running, flashing lights, and then nothing, just static. But right at the 4-minute and 59-second mark, for a single terrifying frame, an image appears. The silent nun, standing directly behind Emily, her stitched mouth twisted into a grotesque smile. Investigators reported the building was empty, but the locals know the truth. They say the silent nun still roams the halls of Redwood Asylum, searching for new voices to steal and new visitors to silence forever.